Have you ever looked at yourself and your life, realized that you have achieved so much, but still felt like you were not enough? For years, that's exactly how I felt. I worked so hard to get the highest grades, start a successful career, making sure that everything in my life looked perfect. But deep down, I actually always felt like I didn't measure up to everyone else. Not necessarily academically or from a job perspective, I wasn't blind to my strengths, but I always felt like others had something that I didn't. Like they were enough just because they existed. But with me, I couldn't see it the same way. I always saw it as I need to earn my worth, I need to prove that I'm valuable. So for a very long time, I actually thought my problem was confidence. And so I started working on my confidence. For years, I worked on my confidence, reframed my limiting beliefs, completely rewired my mindset. And it did help a lot, but it didn't manage to heal that feeling. The truth that I realized much later is that I was trying to define my worth through achievements. This actually, though, is quite common, and it happens if early on in childhood you learned that to be successful or to achieve something meant to be valuable. If you were often praised for your achievements, your good grades, or your good behavior, for always being reliable and ambitious, you probably learned that that was the way to feel valued. So if you notice that up to this point, being an adult, you still feel less than everyone else, like you're not enough, regardless of all of the stuff that you achieved, all of the things that you've built in your life, then the problem might not be confidence, but your relationship with yourself. The first step then wouldn't be to work on your confidence, but to start rebuilding your relationship with yourself from a different lens. And that starts from untying your worth from your achievements. Sounds easier said than done, because if you are a high achiever, there's a very good chance that for a long time you actually thought this was simply part of your personality. You're ambitious, you're determined, you're resilient, you go after what you want, you're willing to work hard for it. And so over time, you kind of just learned that this is who you are. And honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a high achiever. But sometimes it's not as helpful as we think. It is helpful in a sense that it drives us, it helps us to be ambitious and determined and resilient. But at the same time, it can really hinder us, because if our worth is tied to our achievements, then the trap is that we never really feel worthy enough, because then you keep moving the goalpost. Whatever you achieve, you don't even celebrate yourself for achieving it, most likely. At least I was like that. You give it for granted. You're like, oh, okay, I've done this, now on to the next thing. And so it never really feeds your self-worth in that sense. It's like a way you use to measure yourself and your worth, but at the same time, you never allow yourself to accept that you are worthy regardless of these things. And there's many dynamics that show this. I find the biggest one is the inability to rest. I 100% had this. I probably still have it a little bit, because you feel like resting is not an option, because you have so many things to do, so many things that you need to get done. And also, resting for someone who is a high achiever and has learned to tie their worth to success or achievements, it feels strangely uncomfortable. Like you will be sitting down on a couch trying to rest, but you can't, because there's this little voice in your head that is saying that you are useless right now because you're not doing anything. But I would just like to encourage you to start thinking that that's not actually true. This is what you learned probably in the environment you were growing up in. Maybe you were never really allowed to rest, or you were not allowed to be doing nothing. You should have always been doing something useful. And these kind of dynamics tend to create that pattern where even as an adult, you then struggle to rest. You don't ever think that you deserve to rest. So some of the things you can start doing to change that dynamic and really start rediscovering your self-worth from a different perspective is, first of all, starting to notice and being aware what are the specific occasions in which your self-worth is tied to a certain achievement, and then asking yourself, am I pursuing this because I really want to do it, or because I am hoping that I will feel worthy once I achieve it? And if so, learn to take a step back. It's difficult and uncomfortable. If you are a high achiever, I'm kind of guessing that you probably grew up in an environment where you also learned to meet expectations. So walking back from another achievement might feel like you are not meeting the expectations of the people around you, but it is a necessary step to start allowing yourself to see yourself as worthy regardless of what you do. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to get part sponsorship for qualifying as a lawyer. I have a law degree, but I had decided not to qualify straight after uni because I wanted to make sure that that was really the career path I was interested in. When that opportunity presented itself, I really considered it. Kind of represented the end of my academic career, like the ability of qualifying myself as a lawyer. It would be like achieving the top of the mountain to some extent in my field, and then being able to work as a lawyer, making my parents proud, and all of these things. But at the same time, when I was looking at what my life would be like working as a lawyer, or even all of the time, effort, and energy that I would have had to put into studying for the exams and passing them and all of that, I realized my motivation wasn't internal to me, it was external. So the main drivers for me wanting to qualify were actually reaching the top of the qualifications, completing my academic path, making my parents proud, and all of these things. Because to some extent, it felt like my career was incomplete without me qualifying. But when I realized this, I actually stopped for a second and I thought, am I considering doing this because I think that once I qualify, I will feel more worthy because I have done everything that I should have done, or because I actually want to do it? And the answer was pretty obvious to me. I didn't want to do it. I had not wanted to work as a lawyer since when I was in law school, because I figured out pretty early that as much as I loved law, I wasn't exactly interested in working as a lawyer. And so to me, that was a very turning point moment when I realized that many of the choices I had made up until that point maybe were not exactly in pursuit of what I wanted, but rather what I thought I should have done. So I turned down that opportunity and I decided to keep going until I eventually figured out better what I actually wanted to do. And I remember that when I told my parents I wasn't going to do it, it felt very uncomfortable because it felt like I was saying I will not meet this expectation that there is on me to qualify as a lawyer. And it felt heavy, but at the same time, for the first time, it actually felt like I was choosing the direction that I wanted to go in. And even though it felt uncomfortable in the beginning, from a self-worth perspective, I think it actually taught me to see myself as valuable regardless of the title or regardless of the achievements. The first time that you take a step back, it definitely feels uncomfortable because you will feel like you are telling yourself that you're not good enough. But what you're actually doing is you are rewiring your mind to see yourself differently. You are teaching your mind that you are worthy and you are enough regardless of the titles, the achievements, regardless of how many successful things you can do and build in your life. And one last note, actually, choosing yourself will automatically feed your self-worth. So it might feel uncomfortable in the beginning, the first time that you decide to not pursue the next achievement or to not move the goalpost again. It will feel uncomfortable when you try to get some rest and not do anything. But over time, this is actually going to strengthen your self-worth because your mind is finally starting to see you as worthy because of who you are and not because of what you do. So if that's you today, I hope this video gave you some inspiration of some of the things you can do to start changing the way you see yourself and start strengthening your self-worth regardless of your achievements or successes. Thank you so much again for tuning in today, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.